All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. It's your boy Xage here, of course, joined by another lovely and amazing soul. We got Gogo joining us on the podcast today. What up, Gogo?
Hello.
What up, what up?
Thank you so much for having me.
My absolute pleasure. We already got to chat just a little bit about what's been going on in the world and in each other's lives, but I want to kind of intro who you are to everybody listening. Are you from California?
I am from California, actually. I'm from the Bay Area. So came down to LA 6 years ago for college, USC, and have stayed in California. I think I'll end up somewhere else.
Like where?
Hopefully the UK, honestly.
Good choice.
Yeah, I have a lot of family out there, so it's like I have roots and I feel like just the music culture is really dope. And as I like build my DJ skills and stuff, I feel like that'd be a cool place to just experience music.
I support that. I love the UK. Where in general would you like to go?
London.
London is a spot. Have you been?
I've been once. I was like 4 years old, so it doesn't count. I mean, it does count, but like I don't really remember. But I plan to go hopefully this year, actually.
This year?
Yeah, hopefully in June.
I only went one time as well, just like a couple years ago. It was amazing. They love Americans. It was amazing.
Really?
Hell yeah, they do.
That's nice to hear
It
because I
was a
hear
party.
different things from other people in the UK. Like I went to Paris in 2019 for a class at USC, actually. It was like studying hip hop culture in Paris. And they were a little less open to us not knowing French and being touristy. Yeah.
Parisians are assholes. Like, it's like internationally recognized, I feel like. Only Paris out of everywhere in France are they like that, I
Okay,
feel
yeah,
like.
and I only stayed in Paris the whole month I was
Same.
there.
And
So
everybody was like, yeah, if you just leave Paris, they don't suck so much.
good to know.
But that actually makes a lot of sense to me. I know you well from your DJing around LA. I was going to say around USC, but you definitely have brought in well outside of campus and do gigs all around the city, it feels like.
Gratefully so, yeah.
But your music is so heavily influenced by all types of different genres. It's genuinely why I wanted to have this conversation with you in the first place, is I find that like your taste in music is so wide and also so good. And so I just like wanted to
Thank
hear more
you.
about where that came from and stuff like that. But
That's really kind of you to
I
say.
genuinely mean it. Like if you put me on to so many types of music that I honestly just had never really gone out of my way to find before. You played at the Echo, right?
Yeah.
Was that with Sarah's show?
Yeah, that was Sarah's show, yeah. I love that set.
Dude, that set was crazy.
That was such a great night, a great show. Like, it was everything.
It was
yeah.
memorable and phenomenal, for real, for real. While we're on the topic of Europe and stuff like that, do you have a lot of influences from the UK and Europe and things like that?
I wouldn't say so much. There are some DJs in the UK that I like, definitely follow, and I respect the way that they move through the DJ scene. But in terms of like music, I consider myself an open format DJ. So like, it's hard to pinpoint one specific place that I draw influence from. It's really just like feelings more so than like spatial connections to the music. It's definitely like more of a feeling or like an intuition thing when it comes to like curating the music I play. I listen to music from the UK, but I'm a very like track based person. It is something that as a DJ I kind of like struggle with or I feel a little insecure about, like that I don't study movements in music or like genres. It's really a gut thing. Like I hear a song and I like it, and then maybe I'll dive deeper into the artist or like other people in the sound.
I don't think there's any problem with that. We actually just were having a conversation, Gabby and Wyatt and I, about he was calling it the Swedish motto of songwriting, which is that it doesn't matter what you say, it just matters how you say it and like does it sound cool. And I feel like that's what you're saying too, right? Like it doesn't matter where the song came from or who made the song, just like does it feel right in the moment? Is there any way you could try and describe the feeling you're trying to create and like what attracts you to a certain song when you're making a set?
I'll use the Kawhi and Friends show as an example because that was a show in which I knew I had a limited amount of time as an opener. I had a 30-minute set. And so I went into that knowing exactly what songs I wanted to play. Usually for the gigs I get booked for, they're like parties or like flea markets and stuff, and they're longer. So I don't prepare like everything I'm going to play. Maybe I'll pick like 4 to 5 songs so that I feel, like, comfortable just getting set up and, like, being in front of people, and then from there, I'll just, like, fill out the crowd and, like, play what feels right in the moment. But if I'm preparing a set for something like the Echo Show, I think I went into it actually, like, wanting to showcase a bunch of different genres in a cohesive way, so I knew I wanted to play, like, some hip hop, some rap, but also make sure I played fresh takes on that. So during that time, like Drake's album, Honestly Nevermind was really popular, and I loved like his take on dance music. And I remember I also had like Raven Lenae in that set, and her new album at the time was just like such a fresh and like innovative take on R&B. And so like I wanted to highlight a vast kind of spread of genres. I also played some Afro beats, which is always necessary in the set. Me being Nigerian and like also this music becoming so received lately, it's really dope. But I think I go into my sets really, yeah, trying to encapsulate a feeling. I just remember for that set, it was, like, the middle of summer, it was July, and, like, I was coming off of a trip to New York where I, like, was listening to more electronic music as well. I had a show in New York and was playing that music, so I had Kaytranada in the set, and so every song for a set like that where I have to, like, choose beforehand is very intentional, and then I'll have the playlist first, and then I'll go back and decide what order I wanna play it in. And so I think I started off with a Thames edit, and it was, like, slower, and then by the end of it, I, the energy actually peaked in the middle when it was, like, Kaytranada, Drake, and then it ended off with, like, some R&B, Brent Faiyaz. And so it's like, what journey do I wanna take people on in this 30 minutes, this hour set? And I think I just wanted, as an opener, to get everybody buzzing, you know?
You were very successful.
I appreciate that.
Yes, that moment you're talking about, the Case Renata to Drake, like, I remember that moment, like,
Yeah?
that whole period of time, yeah, was vivid
Cool.
as fuck.
Dope.
Do you
I'm
think you
glad.
prefer those gigs where you have to or where it's beneficial to prepare ahead of time, or do you think you like to freestyle in the moment?
That's a good question. I think I see the value in both of them. I mostly get, like, longer sets. I do a lot of parties and, like, bars, and so they'll give me, like, a whole night. And so it does make sense to try and plan 4 hours out of music, but I really enjoy, like, the storytelling aspect or just, like, the intention that goes into planning a shorter set, and because I don't get booked for those as much, I try to do that with my SoundCloud mixes and stuff, like, I am very intentional about the songs that I put in my mixes, usually what I'm feeling in that era of time, and then trying to find, like, a sonic representation of that.
Music is really like a pathway to the emotions we're all feeling, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of the times when I'm planning sets, I'll say for, like, my mixes on SoundCloud, finding and gravitating towards certain songs in the end helps me better understand the emotion I'm feeling. I'll go into it knowing that I feel the need to create something musically or create a certain curation and not know exactly, like, what I'm trying to say, and then it comes out afterwards.
Do you feel that way with your songwriting as well?
Yeah, very much so, and that's why we were talking earlier and I said that me making music is more of a sporadic thing. It's because it'll be like a feeling that I'm like, "Okay, in my day-to-day life, I'm not able to express this. I have to go to music to get it out." And that doesn't necessarily happen too often because I like to think that I'm really in touch with my emotions and I have different ways to experience and transmute them. But, like, music is, like, the edge of my emotion. Like, for instance, I started making music and putting out music in 2020, and that was during the pandemic, and I was just feeling so emotional. I had just graduated, like, post-grad depression was real, so I was just feeling a bunch of things that I didn't know how to deal with on my own, and I was just like, "I just need to find a way to get it out," and that's what really brought me to making music.
I totally understand. I have a similar relationship with like beat making. I like the way you said it too. Like I also feel pretty in touch with my emotions, but there's moments in time where like the outlets available to me aren't really giving me the satisfaction I'm looking for. And so I'll turn to making a beat like once every, many months.
That's how I feel with music.
Yeah. And it just like, there's something about this outlet where it's like, for me, it's always when I'm in a bad mood and I feel like things are not going well that I want to turn to music. I don't know what that means. Like, maybe I should psychoanalyze that another
Right,
time,
no, I'm
but
kinda the same though.
yeah.
Like, all the music I make is, like, very stream of consciousness. I suck at song structure, like, choruses and hooks and, like, catchy earworm things, like, don't come to me. It's always, like, I'm rambling. Like, I could write bars, okay? Not even saying, like, that the bars are, like, dope, but, like, when I write, it's, like, stream of consciousness. I just don't wanna stop until, like, I feel like the point has been made.
We have a lot to say.
Yeah, a lot.
Where do you think that comes from?
It comes from a history of poetry and spoken word. So, growing up, I just was a big reader and a big writer, and I wrote poetry and, like, often performed it at school, in elementary school, middle school. I fell out of it, though, in high school and college, really, for, like, more academic writing and then also just, like, everything in life, and I feel like making music has helped me get back in touch with my inner child in that way. I used to just write to write, and I stopped. That's the beautiful thing about art and expression is that there's never a lack of it, and even if you take a step away from it, when you come back to it, it's still there, like, I don't write the same way I did when I was younger. I write more like prose or, like, I guess, like, rap. Back then, I used to write, like, structured poetry, sonnets, and stuff like that. Like, I don't write like that as much, but yeah, it's nice to know I still have that muscle to work out whenever I feel like I need to.
Something you said really struck me. You said the inner child thing. What that made me think of is like when you're DJing and you're at these parties, I feel like there's something to be said about the inner child of everybody when they're dancing to a live performer or a DJ or something like that. You know, there's like this mob mentality of everyone coming together and like experiencing this moment at the same time. And it's just like semi magical. I know you know Fez as well. And Fez always talks to me about that. Like he truly believes that the closest thing we have to magic in real life is being at a live event, singing the words to a song with thousands of other people that you've never met before. But it also makes me think of this inner child thing. Like maybe there's a part of it where we're all just trying to escape in this moment and trying to get back to like something that reminds us of being younger when things weren't as stressful and we didn't have to be so responsible for all these things. When you are up on stage watching everybody dance to your music, what do you see in these people? Or like what do you feel that they're feeling? Like what is your focus on?
In most settings, I feel a lot of responsibility. I think that it's a privilege to be able to spread and evangelize people onto the music that I really feel like I'm a champion of. The stuff that I play is the stuff I listen to, like, it's a balance because I play things that I know I wanna hear, but, like, being that I have a responsibility as a jockey, when I'm looking out in the crowd, I'm literally, like, looking to see how people respond to everything I do. It's a very psychological practice because I wanna get people moving their bodies, like, getting into their bodies and out of their heads, and it's also hard for me to do that as well because I find that I get really nervous, like, I get a lotta, like, stage fright or more so anxiety when I'm DJing because it's, like, one thing to get the transitions and then also just, like, the timing and the songs. I feel a lot of pressure, honestly, but there's also the ability to tap into, like, a flow state while DJing and, like, whenever I get to that place, you'll know. You'll feel it. Maybe for that set we're talking about, maybe it was when I made that Drake to Kaytranada,
Bro,
mix, like
it was it was so hard.
yeah, yeah. Such a good song, just, like it's such a fun song, such a fun moment, and, like, those are the moments that I, like, live for, and, like, as much as I look out and see everybody, like, vibing, like, it's also really rewarding to, in those moments, let go of control and just be like, "I'm also having this experience with people." I'm always trying to find a balance with it. There'll also be times I said earlier when I do, like, longer sets, like 4-hour sets, like, people are not gonna be dancing for 4 hours straight, like, rave culture and stuff like that, but, like
With the right drugs, they might be.
yeah, exactly, but I DJ at, like, bars and, like, places that also have the capacity for people to be, like, really chillin', so I have to pace myself. There's a lot of different things that I'm thinking about, but I guess my number one priority is making sure that people feel comfortable to express their response to the music I'm playing.
Not to draw on to like the DJ conversation too long, but I'm curious, what do you consider like the greatest challenge and the greatest reward of being a DJ? I feel comfortable asking you these questions because you've been gigging for so long and you've done so many types of gigs.
I
I'm
appreciate
curious through
that.
that experience how you feel about that.
The biggest challenge and the biggest reward, I would say easily the biggest challenge is discipline. I struggle with discipline, and I feel like I could definitely be a tighter DJ if I practiced more. And that's why I'm trying to really push myself to be more active on SoundCloud. When I'm making my mixes, that's when I practice the most because I get really technical with each transition I make within a mix. So I'm like practicing like the same transition over and over again, and it builds that muscle memory. I am trying to make that more of a habit and do that. The biggest reward, I would say, is being able to have that communal experience with people and being like the bridge between something as like spiritual as music, like as the way people come together to experience and listen music. Like I really see it as a privilege.
I think that's a beautiful way to look at it. And I meant to say before you were describing this like experience of being both the creator of the experience as well as an enjoyer of the experience at the same time. I think that must be a crazy thing to toe the line of while being the creator, basically. You know, it's a lot to think about. I think people commonly disregard how much is going on in the DJ's mind or the person creating like the experience for everyone's mind, even close to like a party planner. People always wonder like why a party planner can't enjoy their party. It's like because they're planning the party. Like, duh.
Actually, I started DJing because I was planning events and shows at USC, just like open mics and like different community events. I was working with the Black Student Assembly to build community amongst creators of color. And I would be in these spaces at these events that I had planned. And the music was often like an afterthought. It was like just throw on a playlist as people come in and like set the vibe. But I was like, I want to be more intentional about this piece and I want to be able to do it myself. And so that's how I ended up really like pursuing DJing is like I want to be able to set the tone for the events that I'm planning. I also have like taken a step back from event planning because of what you said is like I really can't enjoy the events I plan. Like,
Nah, nobody can.
yeah, because I'll be planning
It's
and
work.
DJing and I'd be like, this is too
Nah,
much.
actually impossible. Yeah, I think there's no way. Was music a big part of your childhood growing up? Is your family, like, super supportive of the music passion, things like that?
It was a big part of my life, not because of like my parents or my environment, more so because It was it was a friend. So, I feel like I really got into music when I got my first iPod. I wanna say it was 8th grade. So, I was, like, 13. My older cousin or family friend, like, loaded up all her music. That was when I first heard, Graduation by Kanye. That was, like, when I first started listening to Paramore, when I first started listening to Drake, and, like, that's when I started building my taste, is, like, when I had more access. So, growing up, my parents, like, they had CDs, and they would play, like, a lot of Nigerian music, a lot of, like, Nigerian gospel music. So, like, that music obviously had an impact on me, but it's not necessarily what I play now. We did listen to a lot of, like, Afro beats growing up too, the early Afro beats, like D'banj, like, people don't know who these guys are. It's really exciting to see people more interested in these sounds that are coming out of Africa, Nigeria specifically, but also other countries, like South Africa with Amapiano is, like, going up. I used to say my toxic trait is that I think that any song could be, like, elevated with the Amapiano edit. Like, it's
You
just
said it's a
so fun
toxic trait.
'cause it's, like that's the thing about DJing too and, like, being a SoundCloud buff is, like, not every song needs an edit, Gogo. Like, you can just play the actual song and not try to find some obscure edit.
You and Sean have that in common. Sean loves mashups like
I just
that.
love them, but
Yeah.
I'm like, even finding that balance, do I wanna play the actual song or do I wanna play this flip that, like, turns it on its head? Everything is a decision with DJing, yeah.
Do you know Ronnie Quest?
Yes, the
He
homie.
gave me a whole, like, lecture when he came on the podcast in a beautiful way about the influences of music and genre all stemming from, like, Jamaica or something like that, like, just this incredible amount of knowledge that I really didn't know, talking about kinda what you were saying, where it's, like, all of these things that have existed are only like now being appreciated as of recently. And I think it's pretty interesting. For a while there, it was like rock and roll was the most popular thing. But now through hip hop, I think we're realizing like truly like where all this music originated from. And like it really is a lot of like island and African based music.
Hip hop started with influence from the Caribbean and Jamaican and, like, their sound systems, and the intersection between music and tech has always interested me a lot. DJing itself was, like, people hacking music and, like, realizing that they could play these records back to back and mix them and also focus on a specific part of the record, just the breakbeat, and that's how people started emceeing, and that's how hip hop started, and it's just really interesting to learn the roots of these things because with the digital age and, like, the age of information, it's, like, really dope that there's accessibility to DJing and, like, someone can just pick it up, and that's why I said earlier that I have, like, insecurities about, like, not knowing the roots of the music and things that I play. With DJing, at least at the very least, I do try to understand, like, the roots of the practice, even though I don't use vinyl because it's so expensive and I don't have just the wherewithal to be carrying records and all that. I actually took a vinyl scratching class this past summer, and it was just so dope to, like, have the physical product and, like, really learn how to, like, beat match by ear instead of just pressing the sync button on my controller and things like that. Even though I might not necessarily use it when I'm in a setting where I feel like using the sync is just easier and it's gonna get the mix off faster, it's really dope to have that perspective and understanding of, like, the historical tradition.
Yeah, know your roots. I am amazed by people who still spin vinyl. Like,
Yeah,
what
it's
a
so
crazy
dope.
trait. Like, and it sounds so good. I was at some random like pool party, like in the middle of nowhere, really, and this dude was scratching vinyl. It was very exciting. And like you said, carrying around the crates and stuff is funny to me too, but it does seem to have like a value to it.
But it also made people, like, so intentional and so connected to the music, like, you're not gonna carry 50 vinyls if you know you only have time for, like, 20, so you're gonna pick those 20 and be like, "These are what I wanna say tonight. These are what I want people to hear tonight." Whereas with my USB, I got, like, 2,000 songs on there, and, like, I'll be just scrolling through
What
trying to
is
figure
your
out.
greatest pet peeve as a DJ working?
It's requests.
Yeah, of
It's
course it is.
requests.
That's what you made me think of. Dude, I just think it's so funny. Yeah.
It depends. There's the requests where it's like everybody's having a great time, and there are people who are, like, still in the energy of having fun, but they're like, "I just wanna hear this one song for myself so I can really feel free to, like, get there," and those people are really excited, and, like, I get it, but then there are people who are, like, just entitled, and they're like, "I just wanna hear the song," like, "I don't care, like, play the song," and it's like, "You don't even understand what I'm doing back here." Like, I might not even have your song,
Yeah,
like, that you're the way you're talking to me right now tells me that you don't even understand what's
so
going on, you
true.
know?
It also tells me they don't even like the whole song. They just like the chorus. Like,
Right, exactly. So, definitely requests are frustrating at times, but I honestly usually try to, like, make it work because even if, like, the request doesn't necessarily fit in, I clean my hands of it, and I'm like, "This is for you. You requested this. You see how you changed the vibe?" Yeah, give them what they're asking
you
for.
pick your poison, see
Be
what
careful what
happens.
you wish
Yeah,
for, you know?
exactly.
So, yeah.
All right, well, I want to steer the conversation in a slightly different direction. Before we got on here, you were talking to me about how you recently went on a trip to Arizona and you went hiking because you were going to check out the energy vortexes in the deserts of Arizona. I was in Phoenix recently and I didn't do a lot of exploring outside of the city, but we did go down like some highways. And what really caught my attention was those like red rock mountains that stick out. They're like very unique and
So beautiful.
yeah, they like reminded me ish of driving through the mountains of California, but it's not the same. It's like different color, different feeling, if you will. What brought you to Sedona? Why'd you go? And how was the time?
It was a magical, mystical experience, to say the very least. I felt very called to go there. It kept on coming up in conversation, and you know what they say, like, if a certain place, you just hear people talking about it, overhear people talking about it, or you see it come up a lot, you probably should check it out and go. So, people were talking about it, and I was like, "This seems interesting," like, this year, of life for me, like, I'm in my 24th year of life. I wanted to prioritize, or I am prioritizing traveling and, like, just getting out as much as I can, whether it just be a weekend trip to somewhere in California or somewhere farther, hopefully. But I was like hearing about Arizona, I'm like, It's right there. Like, it's literally a 5.5 hour drive. That's how long it takes me to get to the Bay. Like, I've done a drive of this distance before. I can do this." And I was given a week off of work for my job randomly. So I was like, you know what? Everything is lining up. I should just send it. So I sent it. And it was the most like, I don't even it's hard to put into words, like, how much I needed that. For one, it was my first solo trip, like I told you, so the amount of faith in myself and trust in myself that I built over those 3 days is insane. Like, I literally was, like, on a cliff at one point, like, a little shroomed out, like, a little tripping, and I'm like, "Okay, girl, like, this is not how it ends, like, you're gonna get yourself down, like, you're gonna figure it out. Take a couple deep breaths, collect yourself." And I got down. Stuff like that. I probably coulda called for help, but I was like, "Nah, girl, you got it," and I had it. So it's just, like, things like that really made me feel like the experience was worthwhile. Like, I just went at a really good time of the year because no one was there. The first vortex I went to was the Bell Rock vortex, and that is the strongest. Like, you can just feel a spiritual
Yeah,
energy.
I was gonna say, just for people who might not understand, like, describe, like, what an energy vortex is and why you were seeking them.
So, it's not something that you can necessarily, like, pinpoint on a map. Before going on the hike, I went to the ranger station to talk to the ranger and, like, get maps and stuff, and I was just like, I'm really excited, like, I wanna see the vortexes," and he's like, "Well, you're not really gonna see anything, and you might not even feel it." Like, not everybody, like, really is able to tap into the energy, but basically, these red rocks and these, like, beautiful formations have just, like, stood, obviously, the test of time, and it's just, like, an area that historically mystics, spiritualists, religious people have come to commune with nature, and over time, I wanna say there's, like, 4 or 5 vortexes. People have come to categorize the types of energy that are present in each vortex. So I believe Bell Rock was, like, yin and yang, so that's the feminine and masculine. It had both energies, it was a balanced energy. Whereas the second one I went to was Cathedral Rock, and that was more of a, like, yin, so it was just, like, more female, feminine energy with the nature. And it's interesting, like, everything is just so interconnected, like, even the trees in the different vortexes, they don't grow, like, straight up, like, they twist because of the energy, like, affecting it, and as you're going up higher in the hikes, you'll see, like, the trees get more, like, contorted, and it's just, like, you just feel it. It's, like, something you can't really put into words, but I just have been on a kind of personal spiritual quest, and it felt like going there was very much confirmation that I'm on the path that I need to be on of, like, self-discovery and self-knowledge, and it was just beautiful. So Bell Rock Vortex, that was the first one I went to, and that was the one that I climbed the highest. I just kept going, like, I don't even I hike I hike every now and again, but it's like I'm not hiking every weekend, but, like, I was just like, I'm out here, like, by myself, basically. So I just went really high, and then I end up, like, in this crevice of the rock, and I got this crazy picture I have to show you. I'm just, like, enveloped in, like, this crevice of a rock, and I'm just like, there's so many people in the world, and there's so many places in the world, and I'm just right here, like, completely supported by nature and the universe in this moment, and it was just like, I don't even know, it was just, like, so profound, I feel like, for me, because I can often feel like I don't know if you resonate with this, obviously, we have friends and community, but the city of LA is pretty isolating. I, for one, like, I live alone and, like, I'm very independent, I always have been, so that kinda lends itself to me feeling alone even though I'm not. And it was a really beautiful moment, that whole trip where I was, like, physically alone, but I felt so supported by the universe and by love, yeah, so it really showed me some things.
Nah, I Love the way you just concluded that. I totally understand what you're saying. I constantly feel driven to leave LA because of a very similar feeling to what you're describing. Like, there are so many people here, maybe more people than any other place you'll go, but it feels so different. Like, no one feels very connected. And I don't have any malice towards anybody for that because I think, like, the city is full of people around our age or people that are really focused on their career. And, like, I'm trying to be as well. So I think, like, it makes sense why it is that way, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a very positive energy here because everybody's so focused on themselves. I was going to mention that about what you said too, because you were saying like you're 24, self discovery, that's what's in right now. And like, I totally agree. The early 20s, mid 20s is possibly the most valuable time you have to, like, think about who you are.
Yeah, our prefrontal cortexes and frontal lobes, yeah, they're loading right now.
Yeah.
So I swear to God, I'm literally like making sure that my brain elasticity is on point. Because once it forms, it's like it's harder for your brain to make new connections and pathways between neurons. So I'm actively, just in the way I think and just like the way I live my life, I'm trying to make sure that I have a flexible ass
That
brain.
is so important. My roommate, he just turned 25, and so he was saying that, like, his frontal cortex is fully developed. He's not changing his mind about anything ever again. That's what he said. So I totally
Exactly.
know what you're saying.
Yeah, the one thing I want to remain unchanged about my brain is the fact that it'll change. I want change to be the only constant in the way that I think, and I guess the way that I approach life. Like, I never wanna feel, like, stagnant or like I'm just doing the same shit because it's what I've been doing or what I've been thinking.
That aligns with what I said earlier too. The more skills you can have, the better, you know? That's definitely something that's part of our career, but it's just a part of, like, being a human in general. A lot of people find themselves looking back on their lives and realizing like, "Oh shit, I've been doing the same thing for so long." I think to like have that in the front of your mind now is really valuable. And I think like going on trips like that is also really valuable. I was telling you before, I recommend like Sequoia Forest because
Yeah, I have to check it out.
dude, I did the same exact thing. I went up by myself. I do mushroom tea. So shout out Sarah. She put me onto the
Real
tea.
one.
And I like the tea especially because you can like fill up a water bottle with it, honey it down so it doesn't taste like shit.
Yeah.
And you could just like sip it as long as you want. So I would like bring out a full bottle, sip like a bunch of it at the start, and then as I would feel myself like declining, just pop back up. And it was like snowy out, and I was wearing my boots and my jacket, and I was climbing this mountain. And I was like, I'm gonna fall off this fucking mountain. But you just persevere. You realize how self sufficient you can be. And once you're up at the top, you're just like, fuck, I made that. Like I did it. I pushed through, you know?
It's a beautiful feeling.
I totally agree. I love going on trips like that. I hope you can go on more, you know? I also have lots of plans to explore the rest of the world and things like that. Is there any place in particular besides London that you want to get out to soon?
Not really. I wanna go to New York again. I've gone the last 2 years at the beginning of summer, like May, June, and it's been a nice ritual, so I'm like, I'm gonna do that as often as possible. So I'm planning on going to New York and London this year, and I think, like I said earlier, I just wanna explore more things that are accessible by car and, like, closer to me. I also wanna do Santa Barbara, like, spend a weekend down there. I've never been. Probably gonna check out Sequoias now.
SP School, Sequoias, you have to. It's like Sequoia National Park and there's Kings Canyon National Park, and they're like adjacent. And I usually go to Kings Canyon because that's where I believe the redwoods are. There's this one campground called Azalea Campground, Azalea. Yeah, founded by random. It's like a pay per night parking area, and it's one that like doesn't usually fill up. So I recommend just going there, posting up. You can walk to like tons of different hikes around there. Do you have the All Trails app?
I don't.
Highly recommend free app, All Trails. Pay me.
Give him a sponsorship.
Yeah, where the money at? But it has like just every trail throughout like the whole country. You can just find it. It tells you how long they are, the elevation, these different
Dope.
things. Yeah. And I think it has like a full time compass on it. So if you get lost or whatever, you can like find yourself back on the path. Shout out All Trails for real. I kind of want to get back into like the conversation of spirituality that we were having before. Is that something that has always been a part of your life or something that you more so found in like adulthood?
I grew up in a very religious household. Both of my parents are Catholic, and then I also went to Christian school until I was in 8th grade. So around the same time that I really started getting into music. So I was definitely, I would say, indoctrinated at a young age. And as I grew to think for myself more. I actually remember having these thoughts when I was young too. I remember one time in class, like in elementary school, we were learning about the Bible and hell and stuff. And I was just like, so you're telling me like people who just don't have access to the Bible automatically are doomed to hell? Like, and just like those kinds of like questions I had about like just the strict structure and like the doctrine of organized religion. So I grew up religious, but I was always like questioning shit. And then I think college, near the end of college, I tried to go to church by USC and I was just like, this is not I tried Bible study and stuff and I was just like, this doesn't feel like me. Like this doesn't feel like it doesn't resonate with me. And I feel like spirituality and like whoever your higher power is should be something that you feel deeply connected to, not something that you do out of obligation. Like, I have to go to church every week. Like, that just never resonated with me. Once I realized that like organized religion wasn't for me, I started I started researching a little more about my ancestral systems of faith and like what traditional Nigerian and tribal beliefs are and like their different rituals and stuff. I would say now I have a very like piecemeal spiritual practice. So there are a bunch of different like ways of thought and like philosophies that I resonate with to form my own spiritual practice. So like even going back to Sedona and the yin and the yang, like that's more of it might be Taoist, being able to like balance the energies and like the energies within us, how we all have yin and yang, those things, but then also stoicism and that philosophy of having a mindset of equanimity and like being able to experience your emotions, but also like take a more removed perspective from them. I feel like I started to delve more into my spirituality during the pandemic and around graduation because I was so emotional and I was like, I need a system of faith to get me through these times, like something that really makes me feel seen. I don't feel seen as like a queer person in Catholicism or a lot of traditional religions. So I've come to like find my own way and it's always evolving. I feel like it's about being open to everything. Like there are definitely principles of Christianity that I resonate with, like treating people how you want to be treated and like being loving. Love is patient, love is kind. All of that is real. Like that's real shit. And you can find real shit in any spiritual practice.
I was raised very, like, open-minded by my parents. My dad grew up very Jewish, and my mom grew up in, like, a Catholic family, but they both turned into, like, dirty hippies by the time they were teenagers. So I was raised to, like, just like you described, and I hope that more people are feeling this way, but like to explore different possibilities for faith and like create their own faith. I'm a huge proprietor of faith, advocate for having faith in something. I too have a lot of like red flags with organized religion and these different groups that have been existing for so long. Like, I don't know. I think like going to church can be positive, but I think like some of the messaging and like it's literally a business at times, like the business of church.
I saw this crazy, like, article about Joel Osteen, someone who my mom watches religiously, literally, like, whenever we couldn't go to church, like, Joel Osteen was on the TV or some pay-per-view preacher was on the TV, like, how much money he makes. I feel like when you try to organize something as personal and, like, intimate as spirituality or connection to a higher power, that's where like power dynamics come into play. I think everyone should explore their own faith. And like it is nice. And that's the thing that I think now at this point of my spiritual journey and practice is like I would like to have a community like organized religions. Like that's something that I think they got right in a sense. I would love to have that sort of community, but it's like people also need to decide for themselves what they believe in and, like, how they wanna believe in it.
You're right. I think it's like a balance because human nature is to be seeking this like sense of community. And I think some people lose sight of what they're actually trying to gain from the community and more focused on just having a community at all. I think that's how we end up in these like really extremist group fighting each other mentalities is just like I say this all the time, but I think like just like the human desperation, I call it, to like have a purpose is so powerful. It really leads to like a lot of people being brainwashed and these different things. And I'll use like the age old callback, but like, how can you like look at a community of people that like raped a bunch of kids like straight up and like still think that's something worth giving a lot of your energy to? I don't know. I just find it very interesting, you know? I think as we discussed, I think we're both very open to the idea of like opening people's ideas or opening people's minds to other ideas for faith and things like that. Like, sure, if people want to have the option to look into Catholicism or any of those things, like, be my guest. But I think like the places they choose are also in usually a condition where those people are desperately looking for a
They're
reason.
vulnerable.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
vulnerable. Yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
it's so true. What do you think would be like an appropriate or proper way to like open a dialogue up of spirituality to people without it feeling like you're trying to force it down their throat in any way?
I am so much more about doing than talking. So it's really like I try to embody the principles that resonate with me. Like I try to embody like a community consciousness or embody the things that I believe. And I feel like the best way to spread anything is to practice it, like practice what you preach. But in terms of like getting it to people who maybe aren't able to experience you in your everyday life or just like come into contact with you, that's a harder thing to do. Just increasing people's access to information, which I feel like is a blanket statement, but it's really just a matter of people making the decision for themselves. And I think people seek out spirituality and religion when they need it the most. So hopefully those people are able to find guides that resonate with them rather than having people like force themselves on them as guides, but I don't have the answers.
It's just like, just want to throw it out there. But I agree with the first thing you said as well. Like, be the change you want to see in the world. I try to live by that. I feel like there's a lot of negativity in the world right now, a lot of like divisiveness. I think any act you can make to try and combat that is always a good one, you know?
It'll be the littlest moments where I feel like just a small act of kindness restores your faith in humanity, like your faith in life,
So true.
being neighborly.
That being said, I love this like moment that we're closing in on. Is there anything that we didn't discuss or didn't chat about that you would like to discuss before we start wrapping up?
Not necessarily. I think this conversation took a very interesting turn. I think it's really interesting that you are interested in spirituality and stuff. As I've been on this journey, I don't think I've really talked about it with many people. So this is really cool for me.
I appreciate you saying. Shouts out like my mom and my dad for that. I don't know. It's actually funny that you say that and that this conversation went this way. It was like semi pre-planned. I didn't expect us to talk this much about the spirituality either. Before you arrived, Gabby's the one who picked me up from the airport today, and her and Wyatt and I were just kind of talking about this because we were talking about it because Gabby was just quick tangent. She was like venting about one of Fez's old friends that was like way too spiritual, like almost in like the cuckoo bin type. Like she said one day, like for some inexplainable spiritual reason, he was coating himself in olive oil. Like he has very specific beliefs, you know?
Yeah.
And Wyatt was saying that he likes these ideas, but he doesn't necessarily subscribe to them because he's a very like realist person and things like that. And I don't know, it made me think about the idea of like the range of spirituality, and some people can fall on like the not super, some people can fall on like the way too spiritual, and then there's like so much room in the middle for like the balance, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's why the yin and yang principles and Taoist idea of like finding the middle way, the path of almost least resistance makes it sound easy, but it's like it's not easy. And just like finding the balance of walking in one's own personal faith and like being a realist, like being a real human. Like to be a human is to figure out how to mediate spirit through physical means. That's why we're inhabiting human bodies is to figure that out.
But everybody should do mushrooms.
Yeah, that too. That
I always be saying that.
psychedelics definitely have been a part of opening my mind for sure. For sure.
Wyatt always combats me. He says, "Not everybody," and he's right. Not everybody,
Yeah.
but most of
Not everybody can
everybody.
handle them.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we don't need no lost souls, I guess, over mushrooms. But hey, if you're feeling like you might need some self-exploration, there's a little medicine out there for you.
It's medicine. It's like and that's it. When you see it as medicine and use it intentionally, I've had many a bad trip, but it ends up being a good trip because it's like I needed to face those emotions, you know?
I was just saying this, like, almost verbatim, this exact sentiment, yes, because a lot of my friends have never done psychedelics, and part of their reason is this idea of what a bad trip is, and they're like, "I don't want that because what if it fucks me up for life?" And, like, it do be happening, but I find that, like, most people have the capability to experience, like, a bad trip moment and then push through. That is what it's for. Like, you're given that moment for a reason, not to get stuck in it, but, like, to fight through. Same as when you're climbing the mountain and things start to look weird, you gotta just fight through, you know?
Exactly, yeah. Very much
So
yeah.
true. Alright, well, is there anybody or anything you wanna shout out? Any, last words for the people?
I wanna shout out to you for seeing me as someone worthy of a conversation. I'm really grateful to be here and just, talk. I like to talk.
It's genuinely my pleasure.
Cool. Yeah.
Real
Yeah.
recognize real.
Yeah.
So,
Real
thank
shit.
you for coming on, I really appreciate it. I'm also glad we got to have this time. I feel like I seen you in passing doing these cool things all the time, and we only got to have, like, a conversation or 2 in between me probably, like, frantically running around because 'cause I'm insane when I'm working, but,
You get it done.
thank you. But I appreciate you recognizing me and thinking that this would be something fun to do and coming to my house as a complete stranger to come sit and talk to me on camera for an hour, so,
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
alright, well, everybody, if you made it this far, I appreciate you, I love you, we'll have more cool shit coming next week. Shout out Gogo, and, bye.
Niggas want me to do ratchet. Niggas want me to attack it. Put the hood on all the time and passes. Watch this Bob Saget. Greedy, I can't pass it. Them really nigga no fasting. I don't care how much you knew me in the past tense. I ain't no Jordan style, this ain't the last dance. Way past it. Way. Fucking on my ex cause he validate me. Fucking up a check, I don't want no receipt. Mind get possessed, let my spirit speak freely. Hey, my bed can't escape me. My pussy precedes me. Why might have a time machine? I'm still playing the victim and you still playing the pick me. It's so embarrassing. All of the things I need living inside of me. I can see it. It's so embarrassing. All of the love I see living inside of me. I can see I'm blind.
So many reasons why I want it for you, my love. Now I want to return it right now. See the good things you do, they make me no. This distance is taking a hold of me for sure, baby. Come. All I want is make me there. Girl, I want make you. Oh, no. I feel like make you. Oh, no. Pull over. She be like this kind of things where they make man see her. And me, I understand, say your dad don't like me, see me, I won't make you know, say me there for you, cara. And if not, you price me that, I feel like to see her. I never traded you for nothing. This love will make me the jackpot shit. You wanna make you love. You got me with that, you wanna get me with this whole thing gone. I never traded you, baby. This love will make me the something. No. I'ma get telling me what's up, gone.